A little closer here. Yes.
Thanks. So what is it that your caucus is proposing? I've heard talk about Nord Stream 2 sanctions, but even if the president did go along and sanction those small number of Swiss and German business people, what would stop Moscow from re-engineering it and putting in new business people who would be affected by asset freezes? Senator Menendez has a sanctions bill, so does Senator Rubio. Are you thinking about bringing them together soon for like a consensus bill?
Rob, Jim, you want to talk to me?
Well, I said earlier, Nord Stream 2 pipeline was a bad idea long before the massive and unwarranted and provocative buildup of military forces along Ukraine's border. Now it's a terrible idea. It was a bad idea initially because it gives Russians a tremendous weapon. It's an energy weapon and makes Europe dependent on Russia. We've seen what happens to Ukraine, to Moldova more recently. Russia uses it as a political weapon. I disagree with you that imposing the right kind of sanctions could be circumvented. I also believe that the new German government is re-looking at this, particularly the Green Party as part of their coalition, but also the Social Democrats. And what I hope all of us agree with, I think we do, Senator Cotton spoke to this, is that we want Germany to step up and to ensure that we do not see this pipeline be completed. It not only creates this dependency by Europe on Russia, it also hurts Ukraine in a very fundamental way. The existing pipeline goes through Ukraine that provides much of this natural gas. Ukraine gets fees from that. More importantly, in a way, it's an insurance policy because this is something Russia cares about. And then finally, of course, it provides natural gas to the people of Ukraine. So this is a bad idea. It's become an even worse idea, and we believe that sanctions are appropriate. We also believe that Germany needs to step forward, understanding that Ukraine is a sovereign, independent country whose territorial integrity is being threatened. They're also a part of greater Europe. And I agree with my colleagues that it doesn't end here if we do not take strong action to deter Russia from making a terrible mistake.
Let me take a quick shot at this. First of all, I disagree with your premise that it can't be stopped. It can be stopped. And will be stopped if the administration takes the action that it should take and should have taken some time ago. But let's not get the Nord Stream 2 thing lost in the overall objective here, and that is to see that an invasion does not take place. There's a couple other things we've urged the administration to do. They are taking action in that regard, I think delinquently, but they are. We have additional defensive measures that are weaponry that is being that's headed for the Ukraine as we speak. In addition to that, a couple of our allies have asked for relief from their licenses so that they can provide material. I understand that that's being done, and bless the UK for stepping up and doing what they're doing.
Can I ask about the Menendez bill? I know one of you brought it up, and you're talking about this idea of bipartisan unity on proposing what Putin is doing. What do you think the chances are of turning that into some sort of legislative action, either with the Menendez bill as a vehicle for that? I know, Senator Kramer, you have expressed some support for what Menendez wants to do in that package, and the leadership has said that they're open to reasonable additions and modifications to that from Republican members. What do you think the chances are of turning that into a bipartisan legislative package?
Well, there are members of both parties discussing that in the relevant committees. I think passing something's better than passing nothing. I think passing Menendez instead of Rubio is not as good as passing Rubio. That said, I think if we can get the two parties together, and we ought to work on it now, and we ought to work on it hard, and we ought to work on it fast, and it ought to include everything. I think Senator Cotton listed a number of them, including SWIFT, cutting off SWIFT, access to the global electronic payment system. It's got to be severe, and it's got to be broad-based. The sequence is a debatable issue. It's a disagreement. I think we can strengthen some parts of it more like we'd like it, agree to some of the things that Democrats want, but at the end of the day, I think we need to get to a package that is decisive and that is enough to be a deterrent to action. And again, getting back to Nord Stream 2, it never should have been built. It has handed Vladimir Putin leverage he should never have had. That said, it is now a source of revenue for Vladimir Putin that if it is stopped, can still hurt, and we need to be committed to that. And we need Germany to say publicly that they're committed to that.
May I ask about another aggression that already happened a couple of days ago? On another very important ally and partner for the U.S., the UAE. It happened from Houthi, a group supported and backed by Iran. It was very brazen and absurd on civilian facilities. So, what's your comment on that?
Yeah, we're talking about Ukraine here today. We'll take that up.
During your trip to Ukraine, the Ukrainians asked for any specific weaponry, either offensive or defensive, if the Biden administration is not taken off the table.
Ukrainians were very pleased that President Biden chose to use his authority to provide additional funding for defensive lethal weapons. As you can imagine, they talked about anti-tank and anti-aircraft weaponry, and it should be noted that the United States Congress acted in the National Defense Authorization Bill, which all of these gentlemen supported, to increase funding for military aid as well. So you have both the President's ability to transfer funds, which he has done recently, and that's resulted in additional weaponry, but also in the National Defense Authorization Bill and in our appropriation bill, you're going to see an increase in funding for military assistance. The point being made this morning by my colleagues, which I agree with, is that we need to do even more. You know, we are in a position of being able to help Ukraine defend itself. I will say, too, that whether it's Denmark, whether it's the UK, whether it is other countries in Eastern Europe, including Bulgaria, the Baltics, and so on, a number of countries are stepping up and providing ammunition, providing weapons, and so on. And as I said earlier, that's encouraging. We need to be sure that we are unified as a free world.
Senator, is there a specific number you're looking for then, or is there any number that we're looking at which would be enough, or is it just we need to move more?
We had an increase from $50 million in the NDAA, and we would like to see even more. To be honest, if we had a chance to offer amendments to the NDAA, which was not possible, I think we all would have voted for, and we would have had bipartisan support for even more. And so my hope is in the appropriations process we can do even more.
Senator, over the weekend, Jake Sullivan said something along the lines of, it's possible that the cyber attacks may be enough justification in themselves to move forward with sanctions if intelligence showed with certainty that they were done on the part of Russia. If anybody has been in communication with the White House, where they are maybe on that.
Well, I don't think there's much confusion about where these cyber attacks against Ukraine are coming from. It's like the Colonial Pipeline hack as well. Attribution is not that difficult, is that the president doesn't appear to want to follow through on the sanctions. He has more than enough power to take the steps we've outlined here, whether it's sanctioning Russia and some of these cyber actors for those attacks, providing not just anti-tank but anti-aircraft weaponry, imposing sanctions on Nord Stream 2, threatening the kind of sanctions that only America can lead on. He has more than enough power to do those things right now. The problem is that he's been waiting for too long, and we are now at the precipice of a potential invasion of Russia. It may not be too late to act. That's why he needs to act right now.
If I could as well, I've served as both the chairman of the subcommittee on cybersecurity and now as ranking member. Several years ago, we incorporated for the administration the implementation of NSPM 13, National Security Policy Memorandum 13, under the Trump administration. It's still in effect today. It's a classified document, but it lays out very clearly that we have provided the opportunity for cyber operations in a non-war zone. And the purpose for that is to be able to send a message to people like Mr. Putin that if he's going to engage in cyber operations that are detrimental to other countries, he can expect retaliation. And we have that capability today, and it is critical that President Biden retain that and utilize it when necessary to respond to cyber operations. Mr. Putin has the ability right now to damage transportation systems, utility systems, all sorts of items that you would normally rely on, financial payment systems and so forth within Ukraine. He has shown a propensity to use cyber operations prior to his engagements on a physical level in order to soften things up. Clearly, he is looking at that at this time in Ukraine. He has used it elsewhere. We followed what he has done. It is consistent with his operations in other areas of the world. And most certainly, Mr. Biden, President Biden, has the opportunity and the resources to respond accordingly with cyber operations.
This might have already been answered. I had to step away. Sorry. Is the GOP unified in passing Senator Menendez's bill to apply those sanctions if they do invade? Or is that something you guys are still discussing? Senator Menendez's bill? Is that something you guys are looking at passing? Could it pass easily?
I'd like to hear from Senator Risch on this because he's got his own legislation. And what we want to do is have a bipartisan bill that expresses the strong, unified position of this Congress, which we saw on our delegation where we had 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans, taking the same message to the people of Ukraine and to the Russian government, saying that we are going to impose devastating sanctions should this occur, and that we are going to provide additional military assistance to Ukraine, and we are going to help with regard to the other countries in the region to provide for their defense. And all of this, is something that we agree with on a bipartisan basis. I think the legislation you're talking about was done in response, in effect, to the Nord Stream 2 issue. Obviously, we're going to have some differences on that, and Senator Kramer spoke about that. But that's not going to keep us from coming up with a strong bipartisan bill that makes it clear that we stand with the freedom-loving people of Ukraine.
Are you guys doing that now? Are you working on
We're working on
There's
that.
discussions on there going on, ongoing right now.
Thank you.
Senator, what was the overall response to the information you provided to the administration this morning in the secure briefing?
I thought it was a very instructive and constructive discussion. I don't think we surprised the president or Mr. Sullivan or anybody in the administration with what we said, and quite honestly, we listened as much as we spoke. For example, in the area of sanctions, which is what we're discussing, Rob is exactly right. We want to have a strong bipartisan sanctions package, and melding existing legislation together, strengthening it from our standpoint. I think you could have an overwhelming vote, but if they choose to just have a watered down sanctions package, I don't know how strong the vote will be. But I want a big vote because that again expresses the unity. And Tom is exactly right. There's enough has been done for us to punch back a little bit, and right now I think Vladimir Putin is saying, thank you, Mr. President, but words are cheap. And it's time to demonstrate some action. But yes, we're working on some things together, and the president was instructive. The president raises an important point, to be fair. Sanctions they're not a bilateral or a unilateral thing. Even if it's a unilateral sanction, it splashes over. It's got a dynamic effect with allies, with our own exporters. So we have to be thoughtful about it. We have to be committed to it. We have to be clear about it. He listened attentively. He shared a lot as well. One of the challenges that's come up many times is that he has the additional burden of keeping NATO together. And right now, there's at least one outlier. And while NATO's united against a common adversary, they're not all united at the same level of intensity. And so we want to be able to be as united both as the United States of America and the United States Congress and with our NATO allies. And it's not quite as simple as just a unilateral group of sanctions.
Can I make one other point on the legislation? Under the leadership of Senator Risch and Senator Menendez, we have already passed out of committee the Ukraine Security Partnership Act. That's in addition to what we're talking about now. We would most likely be able to fold that into any new legislation. That includes, among other things, additional capability to help Ukraine with regard to cyber attacks, as an example, something we saw, unfortunately, occur last week. So that legislation has already been reported out of committee. It hasn't been voted on the floor yet. So there's strong bipartisan support for helping Ukraine, and there's a lot of legislative activity that I think could be brought together.
So would you be concerned that more military aid might stir up more chaos while
Is your question whether or not this is a provocative act that might cause the Russians to move? Listen, they need to set that aside. We don't need to be calculating what's going to provoke the Russians. We know where we stand, where we want to go. The Russians know where they stand and where they want to go. It's way past time to be dithering over whether something is going to upset Putin or not. That's off the table as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, let's not forget that the escalation of all this has come from one side, not the other. The peace-loving, freedom-loving Ukrainians, NATO, the United States of America, none of us have escalated this situation. And every attempt to de-escalate it with diplomatic attempts, of which there have been many, several just in the last week or two, have clearly not deterred Vladimir Putin. So the time for that discussion is long past.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.